Hello, welcome to Chop Shop Motors. I'm Clay, and I want to take you for a little peek into the cylinder heads off of the 64 F100. So if you watched the earlier video, you saw us pull the motor apart. We pulled off the head that had the issues. Now I'll show you what it looks like to break them down and get them ready for the machine shop. My way is a little bit different and a little quicker than some. It is a way that I learned working in an engine shop. So a lot of you are going to look at this and go, oh my god, that's really harsh. But trust me, I've done this hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, and everybody comes out alive for the most part. So I'll walk you through it and let you see what it looks like to break these heads down and get them ready for the machine shop. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to pull off all of the rocker arms. They don't usually come off quite that hard. We'll set all those parts aside. We'll clean them up before we put it back together. So this is a handy dandy valve spring tool that my dad made for me when I was a young pup. It's made out of a leaf spring. I've used this 100 times. You basically put it on the rocker and the motor's together like that, and you can fill the cylinder up with air, and you can pop the valve down to put valve seals and stuff like that. It's a really cool tool. I use it for all kinds of things. This time we're just going to use it as a pry bar. Really, it was just a really good excuse to show you a really cool tool that got made for nothing. Then this is the head that has the one screw instead, so we'll pull that off. We'll chase down the extra parts. See if we can get the header gasket off. It doesn't look like we're going to save that particular header gasket, so get it the rest of the way off. It bonded to the cylinder head, which is awesome for sealing, less than awesome for saving. So what we're going to do now is we're going to pop these valves off. I could use a spring compressor, which is the same tool that you would use to put it back together, but in this case I want to do it a little faster. So I'm going to just hit them a couple times to break them loose, and then I'm going to use thick wall socket. As you can tell, I've knocked hundreds of heads apart with this particular beating device. Okay. Valve springs are off. You got to chase down a couple keepers. We're going to make sure we have all the keepers before we're all done. It isn't a horrible thing because I've got some extras, but if you're doing one and you don't have a lot of spare parts, then you want to chase them down. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to check these valves to see if they've got a little bit of movement. They all have just a little bit of clearance, which is what you want. You want just, when you're building them, you kind of, it's nice to have them be really tight, but when they've been together like this and you're checking, you just want to make sure that they have enough movement that isn't going to cause any problem. I don't see anything that is to worry about. So I'm not going to worry about where these came from because I'm going to do the heads completely. I'm going to, right here is the valve grinding machine. I'm going to grind all the valves. I'll grind all the seats. it'll make everything just as if we pull them out of the cork pile and we're going to build them. So that one's a little bird. We're going to take the burrs off of the end of the valve stem. I know you can't really see it, but something's kind of hanging up on that as it goes through the guide. And you really don't want to force it because it just damages the valve guide. And we're not going to put guides in this. Like I said, these heads were fresh, and we just want to make sure that everything was good. Do the same on this one. And there you have it. Now you have a bare head. We will take that to the machine shop, get them to do some work on it. Basically, they're going to pull all these out and put screw and studs in it, and that head will be ready for us to rebuild and put back together. Okay, so I pulled down the first head, which was the one that I had already put a screw and stud in, and all the valve clearances felt right, had just a little bit of play in there, so no binding of the valve in the guide, and all is good. I wasn't going to film this cylinder head because it was just a repeat of the other side. Kind of expecting this head would be the same. This is the head that pulled the stud out. So as I went through it, all the valves, while some of them had some little things on the end I had to file, came out. The amount of play between the guide and the valve stem was really good, all the way until I get to the one that pulled the stud out. And that valve is not moving. So in a way, that's kind of interesting to find now, because it probably wasn't valve spring pressure that was causing the issue. It was something in this guide. So I popped it out just a little bit, but it won't hardly pop back in. So basically what's going to happen is this guide, this valve really does not look good. If I look down it, it actually looks bent. So somewhere in that action of bending a push rod, pulling the stud out, whatever happened, whatever the order of events, I think this valve has suffered some problems. So now we're going to turn it just a little bit and see if it actually is bent. Yep, it's bent. So that valve is done. There's no use. There's nothing I'm going to do with it now other than try to get it out without causing any other damage. So I've taken a pair of pliers to it. That certainly roughs it up a little bit. The plan now is to not damage the valve guide. So we won't rush it, but we won't be using this. So interestingly, it doesn't take much to bend them. It didn't take much to straighten it. So we pop it down there. We just move it out. We won't put that one back in the mix. We'll take another valve and see if, yep, it is just as tight. So what we'll do on that one is we'll ream that valve guide and make sure the size is right and that it's not too tight, and make sure we can get a valve to slide in there. So as you know, we're working on a 64 F100 that we pulled the heads off of, and we pulled it apart. It did end up having a bent valve, and it had a valve that was pretty much stuck in the cylinder head. So the heads are going out to get screw-in studs put in them, get batted, get checked out. They don't have that many miles on it, so I don't expect to find too many other issues with them. What we're going to do now is we're going to actually grind the valves. I'll show you how I do it on a pretty early Van Norman valve grinder. Most of my equipment that I have has been around for a while and is pretty tried and true. This is a really early valve grinding machine. It is a dry machine that I use coolant on. I use water injection to keep the stone clean and to keep it cool. I've done this this way for years and years. It seems to work pretty well. It's a little messy, so it's a little different than a little bit later Sioux machine or one of those, a Black & Decker, that have the coolant and lubricant in a trough and it captures it and it keeps from making a big mess. I use water instead of some kind of other coolant that is a little more oily. So the cleanup is a little easier, and like I said, I've been doing it this way for a long time. I'll show you how I do it. Happy to hear your comments, but it's worked like this for years and years. Follow along, I'll show you what I'm doing. The machine's a little noisy, so I probably won't say much during the process of doing a handful of valves, but I'll close out and give you a little bit insight on some of the steps I did. Basically, the machine's already set up to do the valves at 45. I've gone through, I've cleaned all the valves and stems, so everything's got all the junk off of it and they're ready to grind. And then I'll show you some of the end product after we're all done. Okay, we're going to set this up. I'm going to dial up the air, get the water going, and we'll get moving on some valves. So here we go. Take a quick check of the valve. Looks nice and clean. We'll do all the exhausts first. Alright, so you've just watched me grind a set of valves other than one, which was bent, that we will replace. We use this vintage, if not prehistoric, valve grinding machine, Van Norman, and it works pretty good. As you can tell, we have some accessories put on it, like the cooling tower, that for as many heads as I do anymore is less than perfect. If I were doing a lot of heads with it, I'd go ahead and set that up and make a more permanent stand. I say that, but quite honestly, I've used that piece like that for lots and lots of cylinder heads. So I'm probably thinking in my head that I would change it, but it probably never get changed. A couple of details about this: to dress the stone, there's a diamond that swings over on the front of the machine. You can dress the stone with using the coolant on it. You don't have to dress the stone very often. It keeps it nice and clean and allows for a super clean cut on the valve. So that's a quick look at how I cut valves. When I get the heads back from the machine shop, I'll do the seats. I'll let you look at that, and probably watch as I put one set, at least a cylinder head, together before we put it back on the truck. I'll show you the close-up of the valve itself. Thanks for watching as we dress these valves. I'm Clay for Chop Shop Motors. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. We need your participation to keep this channel going, and we'll see you on the next project.